the Witches Sabbath, in Spanish el aquelarre, actually a Basque word that means goat meadow. The choice of word is significant, for among the Spanish, the Basque have a reputation as adepts in witchcraft. Here a coven of witches are offering children to their capriform master. The arts of the midwife are among those most anciently associated with witches. The oldest accounts of witchcraft we possess, those in the Bible and in archaic Greek literature, describe the witch either as a fertility goddess or a devotee of one. In the course of time, the popular notion of witches' work came to include abortion and, by association, child sacrifice. The complex historical motivation behind the evolving mythology of the witch needn't engage us here, for what is most at play in Goya's image is the archetypal association of witches and of women, and indeed of the earth, with birth and death. Not by chance do witches' rites take place in the open air. Their church is the land itself, for the earth is cradle and grave to all that comes to life. Similarly, for men of Goya's time, as indeed for our own, it was typically a woman who nursed one in infancy and acted as nurse in one's final decline. In the image, between the young woman whose back is turned to us and the skeletal crone directly across from her, extends a symbolic space as wide as the mystery of existence. This dark, moonlit plain is presided over by a great satanic goat, whose sexual significance is rendered even more powerful by the decorous obscuring of his groin. The exaggerated horns and the elongated torso of this very erect figure bring the sexual symbolism to the very verge of our awareness. Goya, who had a somewhat boyish sense of humor, gives away the game with the crown of leaves. Though art historians have seen these as vine leaves and a reference to Bacchus, that doesn't match the mythology, and it doesn't even hold up as botany. These are fig leaves, which were used to cover the genitals in art since medieval manuscript pictures of Adam and Eve. Goya has, by their inclusion, made the picture so modest as to emphasize its obscenity, though only to the most visually literate viewer. Perhaps the most poignant undercurrent of meaning here is the suggestion of sexual activity's frightful price, a price paid by women. Goya's wife Josepha bore him 7 children, only one of whom lived past infancy, and her case was by no means unusual in the decades before Pasteur developed germ theory, and obstetrics and gynecology were established as medical specialties commensurate with the dignity of a physician. Certainly, this level of meaning, the role of superstition and ignorance in the suffering of women, would not have been opaque to the enlightened Duquesa de Osuna, the champion of education, hygiene, and modernization, who commissioned this image for her boudoir. The Conjuration, El Conjuro, is the painting of a dream. The man in the white nightshirt is asleep, and we see through his eyes the gang of spell-chanting, wax-doll-pinning, baby-stealing witches who menace him. The crone, given special prominence by her yellow robe, reaches for the sleeper, and she is even scarier than the others, since she is blind, yet she gropes unerringly towards him. One who does not need eyes to see cannot be hidden from, a realization that is on the point of waking the dreamer with terror. In the sky above the witches, a spirit is materializing, holding 2 human thigh bones with which he beats an invisible drum. There is a dream logic here at play. Music, however audible, is invisible, so why not the instrument as well? This unreal but eerily plausible figure, who is both there and not there, breaks down the barrier between what we see and what we are shown. On one level, the painting declares that witches are figments of a superstitious dream. But dreams are real for the dreamer, and Goya tricks us repeatedly into accepting the dream's impossible logic, as he does with the daylight in the midst of a black night where one needs a candle to read a book before one's face. The most thrillingly eerie of the images is the flight of witches, vuelo de brujas. On the ground, a terrified man covers his ears so as not to hear the shrill, sweet calls of the witches. Another man, his head covered to shield his eyes from the dreadful sight, holds out both hands, making the fig, la higa. In this gesture, the thumb pokes out between the index and middle finger of the fist to suggest the female genitals with an enlarged clitoris, a charm against the evil eye. The donkeys at right offer a further level of meaning. Obstinate stupidity. The men have their ears and eyes deliberately closed against reason. They cower and flee from unreal fears. Above, 3 witches levitate. They wear the coroza, the tall conical hat of those tried by the Inquisition. If their crimes merited the pyre, their hats were decorated, as here, with flames. Women accused of witchcraft typically had their heads shaved to make it impossible to hide a devil's mark on their scalp. Thus the crop-haired heads of the figures, the use of the coroza and the shaved head to humiliate the condemned is clear from Capriccio 24. The witches seem to be drinking the blood of the man they have lifted, but are they? One has her mouth at the man's nipple. The other 2 have affixed themselves to lower belly and upper thigh in ways that seem more erotic than cannibal. The more closely we examine the expressions on the faces, the more these too seem sexual. Clearly, Goya understood that the image of sexually dominant women was part of the fascination of the witch, and we have here, as we did in The Straw Man, once more, an image of a helpless male made the toy of powerful females. But the larger theme here is how sexual repression, like that supervised by the Inquisition, produces madness and delusion. Goya has placed the man making the fig with both hands directly under the flight of witches, as though they were his dream, which they probably are, considering that he is covered with a blanket. The irony of his gesture against the evil eye, implicitly invoking the power of the vulva to protect him from the terror of sexually active women, was a joke Goya's patroness must have enjoyed, as did the painter, who had something of a schoolboy's sense of humor, though the wit was wasted on the last 2 centuries of art historians.